Hello, 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 and welcome to what am I calling this? I guess season 2 of the Randomness podcast. I am your host, Amara Franklin, and I am so happy to be recording an episode today. Okay, I'm actually popping in here, maybe 5 or 6 days after I did the conversation that you will be hearing today. But I wanted to do a quick little intro and explain some of the changes that you will be seeing here for season 2. So I know I just kind of abruptly stopped recording the podcast in what I'm calling season 1. It's just because life gets really busy and it's hard, especially when you are a brand new podcast and you don't know what you're doing. It's really hard to kind of figure things out and find your rhythm and your place and what you want to say. After taking some time to pause and reflect on just what I want this podcast to be, I have decided to come back. I don't have a regular co host anymore, and there's no drama, it's nothing bad. It's just that Ben Beverly lives on the other side of the country, and she is a busy lady. She works in telehealth, and she is about ready to go back to nursing school again. This girl, every time she gets a degree, she starts working. She's like, you know what? I'm just going to reach a little bit higher. And we love that for her. So she's going to be doing a lot of big things. I hope to have her back on the podcast as a guest host very soon. We'll figure scheduling out because she's one of my favorite people. And there's nothing bad about her not being here, except for the fact that I miss her. But that also means that I get to open up the podcast to a lot of other really cool, fun silly friends that I have and introduce all of you. And we get to do weird things and have weird chats. And you're about to listen to one of those. I invited my friend Zara to come on the podcast, and we had such a fun time talking about Oracle decks and superpowers. Before I go and cut to that episode, I wanted to just say one thing. This podcast, I want it to always be a bright spot on the internet because the world we live in, we are inundated with things that are not always fun. We live in a country where people are fighting constantly and people have forgotten to be kind to one another or are incentivized to not be kind to one another. I never want it to seem like I don't care about these things or that not having sympathy for people that are going through hard times because there's a lot of it. I could create a whole podcast just talking about my thoughts about what is wrong with the world we live in today. But instead I decided to create a podcast that you can come to for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe 40 or I really don't personally like long podcasts because as somebody with ADHD, my attention span is the size of a pea. And I personally like shorter podcasts. So I really wanted to try to always keep this between 20 to 30 minutes. This one's clearly longer, and that is okay. But the point is, I want this to be a place that you can come to weekly and just turn it all off. The stresses that we deal with, they're still going to be here, whether we here on the podcast are discussing them or not. Just know that they are in my heart constantly. And this is my escape from all of those things. Let's just take a deep breath together. And we're going to go listen to me and Zara talk about Oracle decks. Thank you so much for being with me. I am so excited for what's to come. Hello. I'm with Zara Hoffman. So I'm going to let Zara introduce.
Hi, my name is Zara Hoffman. I'm a self-published author, but in more recent years, most importantly, I am the founder and publisher at Inimitable Books, a small publishing company dedicated to uplifting marginalized voices while pigeonholing authors into writing about their trauma. And we mostly publish fiction, but we have some nonfiction that we've published. We published a writing prompt book and a divination deck, and I'm very excited about those because from what I've been told, we might be using one of them today.
Yeah, we will. I'm very excited to have Zara on the podcast today. Now, one thing that we like to do when we start out the episodes is I call them the icebreaker questions. These are ones that were taken from the internet, and I like to pick them essentially at random so that way we are both answering the questions and there's no thought ahead of time in preparing.
Great.
So pick a number between 1 and 83.
Oh, that's a very random ending number. Let's pick 83.
Okay, that makes it easy because these are not very organized in my Google Sheets because
Our water drink things like are massive.
That's awesome. Mine has moons and stars on it, which is actually really funny because I'm going to be using my moon oracle deck today. So your question, you have to choose one. If you had your superpower, but you can't pick any superpower, you can only pick from these options: teleportation or flying.
Teleportation.
See, that's mine too, because why would you be outside in the elements for long periods of time?
Also, I'm scared of heights, but like the power to teleport would prevent me from being late to anything.
See, that's good too. That's a good point. Yeah. So I'm the same way. I'm lazy and fat. Why would flying would be so cool. So if the question was like fly or drive, well then fly.
Well, yeah, I would learn to get over my fear of heights.
Exactly.
I would force myself to get over my fear of heights if it was between driving and flying. But the moment teleportation enters
the chat, like
yeah, that's it. It's game over.
Okay, but here's a question. So because one of my things is I would choose
is a legit one, but not here, not in this situation because the question doesn't offer it as it. But that's the only one that I could think would maybe.
Which one?
Like super strength or like some type of like impenetrability or something.
Yeah.
Like those are the only ones I'd be like, okay, maybe. But if it comes to like powers that essentially get you from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Teleportation.
So my big thing too is like, why be out in the air in the elements with the birds? And like, what if it rains? But here's my question. What happens if like you're teleporting through a hurricane or you're teleporting through like a tornado? Like, do you get lost or do you still end up in your destination?
Well, I would think teleportation is like you're going from one place to another, but there's no set thing that says you have to pass a certain way. So like when I was younger, my mom and we took a summer vacation to China, and we went on a flight on, I think on an airline that no longer even exists anymore, but it was a flight path that no one ever took. And to get to China, it was like a shorter flight than normal because we went over the North Pole.
Oh.
But you like got there faster, which means there are multiple ways to get to China from New York, even by plane, but they're not all the same. So I would think that it wouldn't matter. Now, if you say, I want to go home and your home is currently being hit by a hurricane, that I don't know about.
That I don't. Yeah. I guess in my mind, I just always think of like you go through the same, like you go the same path, but almost like superhuman. I don't know. I've never thought too much about it. But okay, so I'm going to throw one more in here.
Great.
Well, since we both decided teleportation, now you have to choose teleportation or invisibility.
I still say teleportation for me personally because I don't know. I think the only thing I'd use invisibility for would be like, don't bother me. Like, you can't find me, so you can't bother me.
Right.
I mean, you are parents, so maybe you'd want that ability to be like, please, like, I need a second to myself. And if you can't find me, you can't bother me.
See, but knowing my kids, they just be like, Mom's here somewhere. They just go into every room. Just on. Oh, can't find her. Let's just go walk in here and here and here, or using the Alexa to broadcast through the whole house. They would not care. That would not faze my children at all.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to get
Which one would you pick?
Oh, I don't know. See, I like the idea of invisibility because I just think it'd be really fun for nobody to see you, and then you just go like mess with them, and then they're like, "Oh my gosh, is there a ghost? Oh no." But
It's
also,
haunted, but it's not a ghost.
exactly, but also that would be fun for like 5 minutes. I feel like for fun aspect, invisibility would be amazing, but for practicality, let's go teleportation. Because traffic
Cool.
sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm also
I
gonna try.
don't even drive, and, like, as a passenger, I think traffic sucks.
Okay, so now we're going to get to our main topic for today, which is going to be I didn't really come up with a name for it. It's just we're going to do tarot slash oracle decks questions.
Yeah.
So I will go over what deck I'm going to use because I haven't decided yet. But what deck are you going to be using?
I'm using the deck that we published. It's called Enchanted Glass and Inimitable Lenormand deck. And it's by Veronica King, who is one of our authors. She did all the art for this deck as well. It's a Lenormand deck, which means it's a little bit different than Tarot and Oracle. Lenormand is specifically 36 cards, the same way Tarot is specifically 78 cards. And it has like different card names and meanings that are standard. So, like, the world is a pretty standard card in tarot decks, although sometimes they're called slightly different things. And in this case, Veronica renamed some of the cards to match better with what she wanted to do. But other than that, we kept the names the same. And the fun thing about this deck is not only is it published by us, but Veronica drew inspiration from our other publications for the cards. So that's a lot of fun. And I thought I would take this opportunity to show it off. Thanks, Amara.
Of course. I think the artwork is absolutely beautiful. So how does a because I don't personally like I dabble in these things. I do tarot cards. I've always done tarot cards since I was younger and I've recently gotten more into like my moonology deck because me and the moon we have a bond. And but what is the difference between like I can't say that word, Lenormand deck
Yeah,
and
yeah,
other oracle decks?
yeah. So to me, you can technically use any deck for anything, but there are certain things where it's like, okay, you could use a flathead screwdriver for anything that requires a Phillips head screwdriver, but a Phillips head screwdriver is going to make your life easier for
Mhm.
when you have a Phillips head screw. So to me, a Lenormand deck is very much like day-to-day things. It's not that it can't be about larger themes in life for a year or whatever, but this system was kind of invented for the day-to-day, whereas tarot is maybe a little bit more about the larger themes. And then if you want to get really like cosmic level, like I would go to an oracle deck more to be like, why am I struggling with like insert life lesson versus like, why am I struggling with this person being like this type of thing, which would maybe be a tarot thing, if that makes sense. And then it would be like on a certain day, so if we're doing levels and I'm having an interpersonal problem with someone, I'd be like, okay, what is this person supposed to teach me? That would maybe be a question for my oracle deck personally. And then tarot deck would be like, okay, but why are they the one who's supposed to teach it to me? And then like Lenormand deck would be, okay, but how do I get through a conversation with them without wanting to scream?
Oh, I like that. I like that because I feel like again, the way I typically do my decks and pulling cards and everything is I just kind of go by vibes. Usually, I'm just like that's why I like the Oracle deck
Mhm.
more lately because that is what I typically will pull a like the Moonology like Oracle. I'll pull a card for a day, like what is my day going to be like, or how, like what do I need to learn, what's the lesson for today, or what do I need to keep in mind for the day, what's my day going to look like. And that's
Yeah.
why I pull this, and you can do those with tarot cards, you can just pull a daily card, but I like pulling my moon ones better. And then when I'm like, I need to know if I'm going to get through this thing because I cry every day.
Yeah.
Or I need to know if this boy is going to call me. I go to my tarot because
Yeah.
that's going to tell me if in the next week or two or 10 years, this boy is going to call me. Spoiler, he did. Um,
I think it's easier to do timing questions with tarot because there is like a built-in system that is supposed to be about timing. I'm sure if I studied decks more, like the other kinds, there would be timing stuff as well. But given I know that it's like, oh, this suit means weeks or months or whatever, then it's an easier question for me to answer. But I normally don't remember to ask about timing stuff because I'm always just like, here's just a question. It's not even a yes or no. It's I don't know why I'm asking this. It just came to me and we'll see what comes through.
yes. Okay. So, what the way that we decided that we're going to do this is I'm going to ask a question. You are going to use your deck and then vice versa. And I don't know if you want to ask your question first or if you want me to go first. I don't really care either way.
I don't care either. The thing about Lenormand decks, not that you can't do a single card pull,
Oh, so we do.
but it is normally recommended that you do 5 cards and you create a narrative out of it.
Okay.
So we could
And
just do one of these if you want, like rather than us each doing multiple questions, like maybe I
yeah.
ask one question and you do multi cards and then you ask one question.
Yes. I like that. As you can tell, am always super prepared for these podcast episodes. I think about them so far in advance that we talked about it at what, 1 o'clock in the morning your time? Uh,
Yeah, and then you were like, "Why are you still up?" And I was like, "That's a valid question."
as I stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning, my time, that same very day. Okay, so remind me. So for this, I want to ask something that's more bigger picture, right?
No, actually, in
No.
the opposite. It's more
So I
the
want to do something smaller. Okay. All right.
but I would ask that you not make it a yes or no, but it could be like anything daily, or even just you know what? Don't think too much about it. Just ask any question that comes to mind, preferably not a yes or no one.
Okay. So I want to understand. Okay, I'm just going to go with this. My brain is on fire today. I am all over the place. My ADHD is doing its job in the highest level that it can. Like it gets a gold freaking star for being crazy today. And I am just needing help from the universe understanding how to calm down my crazy, anxious, scattered brain. Is that something that Norman deck can help me with?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
And we're
And
gonna
that's the most ADHD way to ask that question ever.
I mean, as someone who also has ADHD, we're cool. We're gonna pull the cards and then we're gonna figure out which way to interpret makes the most sense because Veronica King, in all of her wisdom, was like, there are multiple ways you can read this. And I'm like, great. That makes it a little bit harder than a tarot deck where it's like the card is placed in a certain order and that's how you read them. Whereas this is like you place them all in order and then you can either read from the middle or from left to right or third way. So, okay, first of all, you got like some of my favorite cards in here based on like the art alone. So you got the tree, which is like it has inimitable titles in it. It's a small card, so people don't know that, but I know that, so I always love that. You got the storm card, and the art on that is just like a beautiful picture. And then you got the moon card, which is just very, very pretty. And you said that you have a bond with the moon. So
I'm on fire. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then you also got the garden, which is a self-portrait card. It's not the only self-portrait that Veronica did, but it is one of the cards that she assigned to herself. and then you got crossroads. Uh, so let's see what makes the most sense. I think reading from the center might make the most sense based on what the cards are, because it's like we're going to start with crossroads, which is card 22. For people who are wondering, I've been playing with tarot cards since I was like old enough to read. I just still haven't memorized anything. So booklets are my favorite thing.
Right.
Okay, so crossroads, unsurprisingly, are like about choices and opportunities. So we're just going to roll with that and say which they are. It says these choices may be hard, but are a necessary step to take to move forward. And you might be scared of making the wrong choice, but this card is a reminder that you have free will. So you're not like being forced into any one path to deal with your ADHD brain. And it's not like, oh, you have to do one thing or another, whether you want to or not. So,
And that's a very accurate card to start with, because the whole thing is that like I get paralysis. I can't make a decision. I don't know what to do. So I do nothing.
yeah. And I do actually think that the left versus the right of this spread is pretty accurate in grouping, which is really funny. So, okay. We're looking at card 20, which is the garden. And that's, if I remember correctly, very much about teamwork. Yeah. Okay. So it's about teamwork and using your like social networks. And it's, you can celebrate your wins with people, even small ones, and reach out to those who can support you and help you build things. So like doing a podcast like this with someone else can like help focus you and support you. And then tree is all about, you know, I remember the meaning that she wrote was about like you should grow together when versus growing alone. So again, it's having support. Okay, it's personal growth, healing, and grounding. So again, it's kind of just you have support, but you know that you're not going to stay where you are. Like you staying still is not an option, but beyond that, it's your choice what you're going to do. So now let's see what the other cards say. Storm is a little bit more turbulent, which, you know, sounds about accurate with the ADHD mind. For anyone who's wondering, I also have ADHD. So this is like conflict and opposition. This card points out this problem so you can reclaim your power. So the rest of the reading will clarify what works better between it being a problem that you face alone because it's internal, or one that's caused by external forces. And with ADHD, sometimes it's a toss-up of which one it is. So let's see what the final card says, and then we can like go from there. That is the next card. Okay. So it's subconscious emotions and intuition, which right now feels a little bit blocked for you. It's urging you to look at what you're carrying in yourself and confront it so that it can make room for you to grow. So a lot of it is very much like, okay, you need to think about where you are, which I know with ADHD, sometimes you're like, I don't want to. But if you can think about like, okay, what upsets me about the fact that my ADHD is doing the most right now? And then once you can identify that, figure out like, okay, what do I do about that? Rather than just being like ADHD is driving me crazy and leaving it at that. But also leaning on community and people to help you grow.
That's so true. And especially because what's so funny about that is, so I record these podcast episodes during my lunch break from work. And then as soon as we're done, I go right back to work. I went from a work meeting to a different work meeting to a couple, like 45 minutes of actual work time, to my lunch, which then was chaotic because it did not go the way it was planned. I had to run and do a task that I didn't intend. So all of these things it's like I have the idea of what my day is going to look like. When I planned out my day yesterday, it was going to be so, I was going to light a candle. This was going to be so vibey. I was going to have so much fun. I was going to set everything up. I was going to be on time. I was going to be calm and caffeinated. Okay, those two things may sound like they are in
If
opposition,
you
but
have ADHD, caffeine actually calms us down.
calms you down. Exactly. And then instead, this is what happened. This is the reality. And those two things are what is, I think, in conflict. And then when I have an idea of what my day is going to be, and then life happens and it doesn't go the way that I had written down in my planner,
Yeah.
then I'm mentally going 60 down the freeway in the wrong direction. It's like, yeah. So these cards make a lot of sense. I
You
very much,
sound calmer now, even talking about it.
yeah, like almost like I have a tree of support. Name's Zara. Okay, so I have two options for yours. I have the Moonology, which I'm just going to read like the back. I don't know what happened to my little pamphlet for my just regular tarot deck, but I have the internet that can look up the cards. So if we want to go with like a three
I
card,
want to go with the Moonology deck because that's the one that you sat down with and you're like, I have a connection to the moon. This is the one that I do. And I want you to use the one that you're most connected to.
this is my favorite. So I'm just going to read the back for people. So the energy of the moon has a formidable effect on our everyday life. Use these gorgeously illustrated oracle cards to tap into her ancient wisdom for healing, guidance, and protection, and learn how to work with her magical energy during each illumination. The accompanying guidebook reveals how to interpret the cards and blah, 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 blah. Just talks about the book. So these are with the cards. I'll put pictures when I post these, and but you can see the cards. So like these are some of they are upside down, but they are very much like
They're pretty.
very pretty. They're very pretty. And I love the moon. I actually will do on the new moon, I speak my intentions into the water. And then I have a whole little jar that I use my Cricut to put like moon water on, so it's only used for that purpose. And I set it up, and then you have to wake up before the sun touches it to drink it. There is a different source of energy. It doesn't make it bad. It's just it's a different source of energy if the sun has a chance to touch it first. So apparently sun water is different. But
wait,
also
I have a jar of each.
water. What?
I have a jar of moon water and a jar of sun water, and I keep them at my mom's place because it's easier to keep stuff by the window at hers. And she's like, "Are you ever coming to get this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." That day has not come
You
yet.
don't drink the water?
No, I use it in other things.
See, I drink it, but then I've realized I need to stop filling up an entire thing because then it's like way too much water.
Yeah.
Like, in the morning. So what I've done though is sometimes I do it just enough for me to drink. Sometimes I do it and I'll do a big one and then I'll sprinkle it around my house. Almost as like my intentions surrounding almost like, yeah. But I don't know if that's a real thing or something I just made up in my head, but I liked it.
No,
Okay.
people do that. That's why you do the four corners when you're setting a spell in certain types of magic. So I had too much time on my hand as a kid.
So you and I are different generations of so I was around came out, okay?
You came out into the world.
No, I was like a teenage, like a preteen, like 12, 13-year-old little kid when the craft came out. So my friends and I, we would just sit around and we would like for hours, the only time we ever focused on anything, trying to get a stupid magnet on my friend Lori. She lived down the street and she had magnets on her fridge, and her and I would sit on the floor in her kitchen staring at the magnets, trying to make them move. We tried to do the pencil thing, trying to make the pencil stand up. My dad, who is incredibly Catholic, would take me to church, and then he would have meetings, and so then I would go to the metaphysical bookstore. So I would go buy like witchy stuff right after going to Catholic church.
I love that for you, and that brings me so much joy to hear, and I think that's very, very funny.
Yes. Okay, so and now I need to watch that movie. So with these, I find you can do like fuller readings where you can pull
multiple cards. I personally, the way I usually do it is I will pull a card for the day and just kind of that gives me an idea of, again, like what my day's going to look like. I do sometimes go to it with a question, and then I just tend to pull one card and that card will give me my answer. So I do use these more similar to yours, where it's not big picture, but more shorter term questions. And that's why I think everyone should use any deck, no matter what system they are, how they want to. It's because, the Chinese food takeout container was intended to be able to be folded out to be used as a plate, but that doesn't mean everyone uses it. Yeah.
Do they actually work that way though?
Not all of them anymore, because I think some of them realize that, oh, no one uses this function, so we'll change the design.
That's so cool though.
Yeah. So just because something's intended a certain way doesn't mean it gets used that way. Like this inventor of super glue had no idea that when it became a gas, it could be used to get fingerprints off stuff.
It's so funny when you said that, I was immediately thinking like they didn't realize that could be used for like medical purposes, because the handyman.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, if you get a cut,
super glue. That's his go-to for everything. Is just like, oh, cut my finger, put super glue on it.
Yeah.
Duct tape, super glue, zip ties. He says if you have those three things, you can basically create or fix anything.
Or be a serial killer.
Literally. That's something so I put that in the book that I'm writing. I put a scene that has those, there's like where they're talking, and
yeah.
A drawer in this house, and the drawer is just full of duct tape and zip ties. And she's like, are you a serial killer? And he's like, no, you can fix anything with this. So anyways, okay, so what do you want to ask the all-knowing moon?
Not quite the how do I quiet my mind, because I also have ADHD, but like, how do I work with the fact that I have chronic pain and need to get things done, without sacrificing my body's well-being?
Because you don't ever stop working, by the way.
I would like to say that is in fact wrong, because I did have a few days last week where I did absolutely zero work. But in general, yes, that is true as a concept.
Okay. I feel like this one is good. Okay, so new moon in Aquarius. So we go to the new moon section, which is I was going to say, how funny would it be if it was number 83, just because that was our... Okay, so new moon in Aquarius, it is this card here, and it says, bring love into the situation. Aquarius is all about progress and modernity. I cannot speak, which is so great that I have a podcast. So this is the time to move forwards. The new moon in Aquarius means no looking back. Change is on its way, and it could come quickly. Whether you get the change you want depends on whether you believe you can handle it and how much you're relying on others to bring it to you. This card comes with the suggestion that you may need to do things independently or on your own, but be loving, not too pragmatic. Time may be of the essence when this card comes up. Aquarius energy has an electric feel to it. Certainly there is a sense that you need to let go of the past and move towards your future as soon as possible. Attuned to the moon, explore the idea that it's not what you know, but whom you know. Additional meanings for this card. You need to be more detached from the situation. Thinking outside the box will bring the solution. More pragmatism is called for. Improve your karma by doing some charitable work. The teaching. Aquarius is a sign of invention, modern advances in technology, and humanity. Okay, I have a thought. Its energy is a little brittle, it's individual, scientific even, and relatively emotionally detached. Many people think Aquarius is a water sign because of the Aquarius symbol, but but is the water barrier. But it's actually an air sign and is far more about intellect than the emotional water signs. As to this card, no matter when you draw it, dropping convention works well with this energy.
I mean, I have thoughts about it, but you said you had thoughts about it first. So
The only thing that I thought was just when it mentioned the sign of invention, modern advances in technology and humanity, I feel like it's very interesting because it talks about doing things on your own, but you already do everything on your own. Okay. So like that doesn't make sense. But then when it's talking about modern advances in technology, I feel like it's one of those things like what can you like automate? What kinds of things can you we talked a lot about like earlier we were talking about, AI and how some tools are really helpful, but some things are harmful. Like generative AI is harmful, but yet tools that make things easier or again like things that you can automate, is there anything that you could maybe take off your shoulders by automating or using a technology tool to make those things better instead of doing everything on your own? But I don't know.
well, so yesterday I'd been seeing these ads for this thing for a while, and I don't necessarily want to say the name of it and ruin your ads for like the next month. But it's something that is like, oh,
You think that I'm monetized?
no, I mean like because all our
Oh my,
devices are
I
always
think what we
listening.
were talking about the other day with the yes, yes, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
But it's a thing that's wearable, and
Uh-huh.
it's like we're not just counting steps. We also help track like energy, like when you report that you have high energy or you have low energy, then we like help you maximize that without like pushing yourself too far into burnout
Yeah.
and stuff. So I'm like, oh, maybe this is the sign that that wasn't just a whim, and like I should get
Yeah,
that.
no, I think it's funny that we both were like that the technology aspect is what because I was like listening to that I'm like I don't feel like this is so much of a question about like I don't feel like the answer is necessarily talking so much about like how do you work so much through your pain so much as like what do you need to do by yourself and what do you need to actually like get help with, whether that be help with your pain or help with a task or help with whatever.
Yeah,
um so
I
how
think
did
that
you feel about your card?
I felt like it was really great. I think even beyond that thing, which was what my mind went to, I was like, oh yeah, also in 2 days I am going to talk to a surgeon who will be affecting my next endometriosis surgery, which also helped a lot with my chronic pain. So basically, go to smart people
Those
and
cards-
modern science and technology to help fix the problem in
yeah.
one way or another.
Well, this was fun. Now I feel like I one of my things that I wrote, so this was a goal of mine last year, but something that I put down for my goal for this year too, is to do more things like this, which is one of the reasons why I presented this as an option to you of a topic that, and I just wanted you to be able to talk about your deck and learn more about it. But I just think it's fun. But also, this is something that it is on my goal to make sure that I pull a card, if not every day, at least like more days out of the week that I don't.
I love that for you.
So one of the things I did is I moved where I keep them. So I used to keep them still next to my bed, but on like the bottom rung of these, like I have these next to my bed. I have little shelves, but now I put it to like the where it's almost like right next to. So I just can pull it as soon as I get up in the morning. So and I'm keeping my phone farther away from me too. Well, so that is that for our kind of main topic. And then I like to end every single episode with something. I call them the happy fluffy story from somewhere in the world slash the interwebs. So I know Zara has a fluffy story from
The
Twitter.
internet.
From the
It's
internet.
it's weirdly enough on Twitter, but it's an account that only shares nice things. Um,
It's an account that existed long, but when Twitter was still Twitter then.
I don't No, it joined in March 2023.
Interesting. Probably because I feel like this account probably had the same idea for Twitter to what I have for like, this is a place where I just want it to be weird and silly and fun and positive.
Yes. Yeah.
And I feel like they were like, this place here on the internet is the armpit of the internet, and it is horrible and it's stinky. So I'm going to infuse any sort of light and perfume to this place. So what was the story that you have?
Okay, this is let me find it because I have it. Okay. Well, okay, that one's a pic. There's so many where it's like, oh, it's a picture, but that's hard to describe on a podcast. So we're gonna do this one. It actually came from Tumblr. And for people who are the Twitter account is called Wolf of X. The username is something else, and it's long, so I'm not going to make people listen to that and try and remember
it. In the show notes, you can send it to me, and I'll put the
yeah. So I'll send Amara the link to the tweet, but the screenshot itself is from Tumblr. And it's in response to a post by someone called Nosebleed Club, which is funny because I actually had a nosebleed earlier today, which said, tell me a soft memory. And then the answer was from Life of Brie Books or Life of Bry Books. I'm not sure. It's Life of and then BRY Books. And it says, my oldest brother is 10 years older than me. When I was in first grade, he took me shopping for new school clothes, which was huge because as the youngest of 6 kids, I lived in hand-me-downs. He bought me a little navy blue polka dot dress with a Peter Pan collar and red alphabet buttons. But on picture day, I lost one of the buttons on the playground. I had a total meltdown because my brother spent his own money to make sure I had this new dress, and I ruined it. I was a mess, totally inconsolable. My teacher was also the mom of one of my brother's best friends. She told him, and he, my brother, and the entire football team searched the playground after practice for my lost button, which they actually found. My brother sewed the button back on himself in the car, all while trying to explain that he wouldn't even have been mad had I lost it. It was just a button and a dress. But I did have one of those little red alphabet buttons sewn into my wedding dress. And I saw that online and I was like, oh my God, this is the cutest thing ever. And it needs to be like
that is
a movie or a book or something. So I don't know how long ago this was. Like it's Tumblr and they don't have whoever took the photo like cut out the times or whatever. But I just saw that and I was like, oh, this is so sweet. This is what Amara means when she wants a nice story.
It's like, it's all about like positive or spreading kindness and being, and also understanding like it's just a button. Like no matter what happens in our lives, big or small, in the grand scheme of things, it's just a button. But the fact that like everybody dropped what they were doing to help them find a button. And
okay,
so
I just found the Tumblr post. The Tumblr post was posted on September 28th, 2022. And it has 268,209 notes.
Because it is the cutest story. And the fact that, oh my God, and the fact that it was on her wedding dress just makes me, that's so sweet. Well, I appreciate you joining me on the podcast today. Hopefully this sounds okay because I have been looking and no matter what I do, it keeps redirecting from my pretty light up microphone to my MacBook one. So hopefully the audio is okay for anybody that listens, whether there is 5 or somehow 500, but so far there's 5. So I appreciate all 5 of you and I appreciate you for being here. If there's anything else that you want to leave, I will put all of the like links to where you can find Zara and Inimitable Books. But is there anything else that you want to share before I hit end recording and go back to work?
Tell your friends to listen to this podcast because it's a lot of fun. And like Amara said, it's just a bright spot in the craziness of the world. And I think we could all use more of that.
What she said, definitely follow the podcast on all the places and tell all your friends to listen. And thank you so much.